unless you're an entrepreneur or have a parent that is one, you probably don't know much about it. So most people don't understand. They say, oh, just go back. Why wouldn't you just stay in a career or a job? And someone who has a calling to be a business owner, it's different. That doesn't satisfy it. It's about something bigger. So surrounding yourself with other entrepreneurs is probably one of the biggest factors to your success.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hi and welcome to the My Future Business Show. My name's Rick Nuske and I have the wonderful pleasure to have Stephanie Staidle on the line with me today. Now, she is the founder of the Right Brain Entrepreneur, and in that business she's a business coach amongst many other things. She does speaking and so on. Welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Look, we've had to circle back on this call twice now because of, internet issues. It's one of those wonderful things that when you have an online sort of environment that you're working on, sometimes these things can happen. So thank you very much for coming back on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Now, for everybody who's listening today, Stephanie has some amazing things to share with you. Now, if I look back on my starting point in my business, my mindset wasn't necessarily where it needed to be, but I wasn't even aware of the things that I needed to be focusing on. And today, Stephanie and I are going to be talking about some of those things. So, Stephanie, I think it's important just to share with our audience a little bit about your background, what you do, and what you like to do when you're not actually working.
Sure, absolutely. Well, let me share just a little bit about my personal story and now what I do, and the lifestyle that having my own business now that I'm able to have what I do with that free time. But I, like many entrepreneurs and business owners, I started off with the usual 9-to-5 in the corporate world. I did what I thought I was supposed to do. My parents were teachers. Everyone seemed to say, go to college, do well, and get a job. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did. But it did not take me long to realize that it did not work for me. I did not see myself in a cubicle or working in an office or having someone else tell me what to do. I have always been a free spirit from a young age, and I knew I'd want to have control over my schedule and my income. So I actually worked in marketing and advertising with some really big companies, American Express and Clear Channel, but I was looking for something more meaningful for myself. And I went back to school and got my license in art therapy, my master's in art therapy. And for those that don't know what art therapy is, it's a form of psychology that instead of using the typical talk therapy where we're just speaking, it uses visual thinking and creativity. And often a client may be doing artwork or tapping into their creative process in other ways. And when I was working with clients, I discovered that they were overcoming challenges a lot faster and more effectively using these techniques that are fairly new in the psychology world, probably only about 4 or 5 decades. And I wanted to spread this to the masses, and how I decided to do that, might seem a little odd going from therapist to business coach, was I really saw that creativity was missing in the business world, that most people that go into careers just in general, they start to lose that part of themselves. And it's necessary in order for us to be effective and happy, but also it's also imperative if we want to create some sort of impact in the world. We need to be able to tap into that creativity. So I found my calling in coaching business owners that are impact driven, purposeful. They really want to make a difference, but they also want to have that lifestyle of freedom and generate income. And I want to help them to overcome the common blocks, which, yes, there's strategy and marketing, but honestly, 90% of our success is mindset, how we think, what we believe, how often we're tapping into that creativity. So that's how I've combined my experience in psychology with business. And I've been doing this. I've been coaching for over 10 years. I've pretty much seen it all. and if I haven't seen it, I've experienced it myself. And now that I have the lifestyle, because I feel you have to be that which you are going to be teaching. So it would be inauthentic for me to teach my clients how to have how to work less, generate more income, be fulfilled if I'm not living that way. And so I had to start with myself and my own mindset, and now I'm there. And so the things I love to do, the beach is my happy place. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
surfer.
Mm-hmm.
I still love, I have a background in the arts, hence art therapy. So playing piano, doing anything that's crafty, cooking is also a creative outlet for me. I just really love to enjoy whatever the world has for me. So travel is also a big component of that too.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I just I reflect a lot on my children, and I think about the theta stage they go through from 0 to 7, where they oftentimes are playing with mud, and they'll think it's an actual real cake, and they're in that creative phase. And I love to sort of swing back on that and sort of talk about the things that we learn in our early childhood. We start to go away from those as we grow older. Then we get a job, and then all of a sudden we're in this cubicle that you mentioned earlier. So what happens to us then? Do we just switch off and become a little bit robotic about our existence?
Essentially, yes. That's the bad news, but it's also the good news because we learned how to switch it off,
Mm-hmm.
but it never went away. It's innate in our DNA. We are creative beings, and we just need to unlearn that old programming and learn how to tap back into that part of ourselves. There was a longitudinal study. I think I mentioned this in our last conversation that
Mm-hmm.
anyone who has kids or is considering having children, or just if you want to know more about how our education system kills off creativity,
Mm-hmm.
Sir Ken Robinson has a video called Changing Education Paradigms, and he talks about how our education system was built in the Industrial Revolution, and at that time it meant certain skills were important to have a job afterwards, but that was math and sciences. But our education system hasn't changed much since. It's not adapting to the times. And the first thing to go are the arts. We don't seem to value creativity in the
Mm.
same way, even in how we pay the creative fields like teaching, like social work, like art. The whole starving artist
Yeah.
came from that. And what we've discovered is that they did a longitudinal study where they showed that children at kindergarten age had a capacity for creative genius. 98% of them scored at levels of creative genius, and the other 2% extremely high as well.
Yeah.
But as they followed those children into adulthood, it started to decrease, and a lot of things happened to these children. But the common denominator is that they all went through the same education system, and most of us go through the same education system. Even some private schools are still following that standardized test kind of logical curriculum, and it's not really, we basically lose touch with
Yeah.
that creative part because we stop using it like a muscle that we don't take to the gym. And so a large part of what I do with my clients is I take them back to the gym. Their brain is the muscle that we're starting to work again.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
what's great about that is it does take some practice and discipline, but it's not like you have to fill yourself with something that's not there. It's just about removing all the blocks so that it will reveal itself again.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like a process. I mean, if you're now 30, 40, whatever age group you're in, you have to unlearn these things. Do you find that your clients, it's difficult for them to do that?
I would say it's difficult for anyone to create change, no matter what it is.
Mm.
And so the important thing is the desire and the willingness and the commitment needs to be there. If that's there, then everything else is actually easy, or easier rather. It's when you don't know what your calling is. It's when maybe you have too many fears, and you're not willing. You're basically gonna. How would I describe this? There's a lot of people that are so afraid of leaving the unknown that they almost are comfortable in their misery, right? So there has to be a breaking point for my clients where
Mm-hmm.
they're no longer willing to tolerate the old way of being. So that sometimes is the difficult part that has to happen on a core level, on an individual level. And when someone gets there, then, as they say, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
And then as long as you're consistent. And there's lots of tools and techniques and exercises that are very interactive that I bring my clients through. I'm also trained in something called neurolinguistic programming. Tony Robbins is very famous for that, where you can literally rewire the brain in just a matter of minutes using some techniques. So if you're willing to do the work and you do the work, then it's just a matter of time of training your brain. We do have to be patient, but you need to have a bigger why. You need to have a reason for making those changes, because, change is scary, not only for you, but the people around you, right? People are like, wait, what's happening? You're changing.
Yeah. Well,
so there's a lot of different factors.
It seems to me that, you would, as you evolve and unlock those, abilities within yourself again, you'd start to move away from certain circles of friends. Have you noticed that that happens in your process?
Yeah, and it happened to me personally. So a large block for entrepreneurs is money mindset. And when you think about going out on your own and starting to ask for money, having to become more skilled in sales, charge a certain amount, all our money stuff comes up. And I definitely had my own money stuff. And what I realized I needed to do, in addition to removing some of my blocks, is I had to surround myself with people that had the kind of results that I was looking for. And because if you're a smoker and you're trying to quit smoking, you're not going to continue to hang out as much with your smoking friends, especially in the beginning stages. It's way too easy to fall off the wagon. So if I had certain goals in my business and in terms of income, and so I started to hang out with people that were a level or two above me, because that would pull me in to a different way of thinking. If I continued to hang around with people that maybe had a scarcity mindset, or were always continually broke, or didn't know how to handle their money very well, I would go back into that old patterning. So I'm never saying, disown people, but you do have to start to shift the communities that you're going to spend the most of your time with. Not everyone's going to be very supportive of you starting a business, just because not everyone gets it. There's a lot of myths and confusion around it. And unless you're an entrepreneur or have a parent that is one, you probably don't know much about it.
Yeah.
So most people don't understand. They say, oh, just go back. Why wouldn't you just stay in a career or a job? And someone who has a calling to be a business owner, it's different. That doesn't satisfy it. It's about something bigger. So surrounding yourself with other entrepreneurs is probably one of the biggest factors to your success. And that's why with my coaching programs, everyone joins our online forum of other entrepreneurs, so that you're no longer alone. I have group calls where you, again, can talk about your challenges, and everyone's nodding. They're like, oh my gosh, yes, I get it. And when you know you're not alone, then you have the motivation and the inspiration to move forward.
You want to hang around those that mirror what you want to become, don't you, really?
Yes.
And and we're talking about masterminding, aren't we, basically?
Yes. Yeah. Masterminding, or, mastermind can be different. Sometimes there's masterminds that are led by someone that's got a certain number of expertise. And then there's masterminds where everyone's on the same playing level. Mine is a good mixture. I have some that are a little bit more advanced and some that are in their beginning levels. And I like that, because if we advance and we then say, well, there's nothing left for me to learn, then we stop growing. And so I still learn from my clients who are just in the beginning stages of their business, even though I'm, 10 years in.
Yeah.
And the reverse. So it's a little bit different from a mastermind group. Mastermind groups are great, but generally a mastermind is going to be a little bit more advanced in terms of up-leveling. And so I would say just even any supportive group, a meetup, going to conferences where there's other entrepreneurs, that can be pivotal for you.
I just had this thought that I once heard that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
I love that.
Yeah, in terms of your personal development, I can see here that you've been on some pretty big stages with NBC and TEDx, and the list goes on and on. I won't go into the list, but how does that come about for you that you get these opportunities?
A lot of people think, I'm going to give my secret here to the listeners.
The
a lot of
secret
people,
sauce.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. A lot of people think, oh, you have to put a lot of money into PR to make that happen, to be seen. I found my opportunities through just continuing to be bold and asking, not being afraid of someone saying no. Because if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
No. Yeah.
So if you want the chance at a yes, you have to ask. So, I got the TEDx through someone else that I had met through a community. And as she learned about what I was doing, she invited me to come to her TEDx event. The NBC, I literally reached out to NBC and to other news outlets saying, hey, are you looking for some new material? What I'm doing is pretty cutting edge and new. Would you be interested? And NBC picked it up. So if you're willing to be bold, if you're willing to stretch yourself and just talk about what you do and make the request, that's how you get to these big names, especially right now. It's all about relationship building. Unless you're Oprah, you need to build relationships and network and get yourself out there. And then you plant seeds. And eventually those big names start to hear about you, and it's all through referrals. So that's how I've been able to be on these stages, is through people I know, through having good relationships and partnerships.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. There's some secret sauce for everybody to consider. This is a question of confidence, isn't it? Do you find that you can bring somebody who lacks confidence? They're certainly around, and you work with them so that builds up their confidence. And do you find that they ultimately have this emotional release when they suddenly realize, you know what, I can actually do this?
Yes. Yeah. There's different types of personalities, right? There's some people who are naturally bold, but they need more strategy work. They have some mindset stuff, but they probably just need a clear strategy, and you tell them what to do and they go and do it. And then there's others where they know what they need to do. And I would actually say this is probably the majority of entrepreneurs, that they have access to a lot of information on how to maximize their business, but they're not taking action because of those mindset blocks, specifically as we've been talking about confidence. So I find that I bring those kind of clients through small baby steps. If you have to cross a long bridge, and you're constantly looking down at the, you're crossing the Grand Canyon, that's going to be a little too much. But if you just look one step in front of you, all of a sudden you've crossed that bridge, and you look back and you're like, wow. So overcoming fear is about slightly desensitizing yourself. So someone who's lacking confidence, I'm not going to, just push them out of the plane with a parachute. I'm going to start with, I'm going to start with some smaller steps of like, okay, well, why don't we just go to a tiny bridge first? And then we start to go bigger and bigger. And the way the brain works is the more you do something, the more hardwired it becomes. And we've hardwired a lot of fear into our brain. So we have to dismantle that and start to strengthen other wiring. And so the more you take small actions in terms of confidence, the more confidence you're going to have in all areas of your life.
This seems to be about the, being persistent and consistent, isn't it? Now, I'd just love to just talk a little bit about if somebody's just listening to this today, and sometimes we have beginner entrepreneurs and we have existing business owners who are looking to get a little bit more momentum, but they're not sure about their mindset. What are some practical steps that they can use right now?
Yes. Let me think of a couple of my favorites. Well, the first thing is you have to examine your limiting beliefs. We know we have a belief so we all have a voice in our head. And if you're saying what voice, it's that voice. Yep. So we have a voice in our head that tends to be biased. The Stanford study showed that we have a negative bias. So by default, that voice will be critical. It'll tell us that's not possible. You can't do that. You're not worthy of that. So anything that cuts off possibility, that's a should or shouldn't, or that's not possible, or I'm just not that way, that's a limiting belief that you need to take a deeper look at and really ask yourself, when did that belief start? Because that belief really isn't ours. Our beliefs are created when we're young and we're not emotionally mature, and something happens to us and it's painful emotionally, mentally. And so our brain goes, whoa, 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 I am not going to do that again. Yeah. And it files it so that anytime there's something that even gets a sniff of like, oh, that looks like that old time when I was rejected. Yeah. It'll put on the brakes. Yep. So you have to be able to understand when your beliefs first started and start to heal those a little bit. You might need to look at it from a different perspective and just honestly understanding that a lot of these beliefs aren't necessarily the truth, that we have a choice in what we take on in terms of our thoughts can be very liberating. So I would say the very first thing is just examining your limiting beliefs. I do have to be honest, removing limiting beliefs is something that's hard to do on your own, but the more aware you are of them, the better. And then, this is why I have a business, is because coaches are very masterful in helping, hold up a mirror and helping you to see what those limiting beliefs are and bring you through processes that can transform those. So looking at the limiting beliefs and then looking at ways that you can bring what I call right brain thinking into your world. So we need to quiet that over analytical left brain. Mm-hmm. We need to bring in more of the creative, joyous, intuitive right brain. And the way we do that is by working more with our hands, changing our environment, asking ourselves different and better questions. So instead of saying, I can't, asking, how can I? Or what's it going to take for me to do this? Because when we really, really want something, we find a way, and we've done that in our life before, where we've been really resourceful, but then we forget that we are able to apply that anytime we want. So think about a time in your life when you really wanted something and you moved mountains and you made it happen. And look at what you did and start to apply it to your business. And then just a couple of other great right brain tricks. Mm-hmm. Any way that you can just start to spark some of those creative neurons in your brain, picking up a pottery class, or, moving your work into a cafe, like getting out of your office and working from a cafe. You change your environment and it starts to fire those creative neurons. Going for walks. Mozart, he didn't write his symphonies at the piano. It was on his walks. Believe it or not, they came to him as visions because that left brain was quieted and the right brain was able to speak. That's why people get great ideas in the shower. So anytime you can put yourself out of analysis mode into more of a relaxing, meditative mode of flow, and that's what creativity is about. It's not about artistic talent. It's just about going to a state of flow. That's going to really help you to shift your mindset as an entrepreneur.
Thank you so very much for sharing that insight with our listeners. Stephanie, where can people find you if they want your help?
Oh, of course. Well, if you are a corporation and you love what you're hearing here and you want me to come in and do a workshop or a talk for your employees, the best website for that is my corporate website, which is www.trbe.org. However, if you're an individual solopreneur, someone in those beginning phases of your business, or maybe you've been in business for a while and you've hit a big block, then go to the rightbrainacademy.com. I have a lot of great resources for you, both free, low cost. You can learn about coaching, but I also have a free gift for all the listeners. I'm going to offer one of my ebooks that's going to go a little bit deeper into right brain thinking and how to apply that to your business. And you also have a chance at having a free coaching call with me. So you can get that at therightbrainacademy.com/free gift.
That's fantastic. So for everyone who's listening, depending on where you hear this call, there will be links splattered around the site. So be sure to look out for those. Stephanie, it's been an absolute treat having you on the show with me today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've been loving this conversation, Rick.
It's been fun having you on the call with us today, so make sure to subscribe, leave us a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show. And if you're looking to create your own professional audio or video presentations, then for more details, visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.